Welcome. My name is Hudson Grey. Today, our video looks at the solemn outcome of one of the most amazing stories this researcher has ever had the pleasure of hearing. This video is dedicated to my dear friend Kendra that was nice enough to show me the documentary and loves bears. On Vancouver Island, my home, we have mostly black bears, but I have heard tell of grizzlies living on the eastern coast. A small population of 7 to 12 grizzlies have been observed. That pales in comparison to the Alaskan wilderness of Katmai Nature Reserve, where the main character of this true story lived for 13 seasons. There, in the deep and powerful nature, is a condensed population of about 2,500 grizzly bears in a reserve half the area of Vancouver Island. To put it in perspective, the wilderness has always had a pull, a magnetic force for those seeking solace, escape, or something larger than themselves. For one man, this pull became an obsession so consuming that it would ultimately cost him his life. His name was Timothy Treadwell, and his story is one of contradictions, passion, and a dance on the razor's edge between love for nature and the cold indifference of the wild. Born Timothy Dexter in 1957, Treadwell wasn't always the bear-loving adventurer that we know him as today. Before the wilderness, there was Hollywood, a dream that, like so many before him, turned to ashes. After struggling as a failed actor and battling substance abuse, Treadwell sought out a new purpose. And in the wilderness of Alaska, he found it. But what he found wasn't just about the bears, it was about transformation, an attempt to become something, or perhaps someone, different. He renamed himself Timothy Treadwell, a man reborn in the wilderness, seeking redemption. Treadwell would spend 13 summers living among the grizzly bears of Katmai National Park. He wasn't merely observing these magnificent animals. He believed he was protecting them. To the world, he presented himself as their guardian, a man willing to stand between the bears and humanity. Yet, those who knew him or studied him saw something deeper, perhaps darker, in his journey. To understand Treadwell fully, we need to explore the psychological undercurrents that drove him. One of the most fascinating aspects of Treadwell's story is how it aligns with terror management theory, a concept developed by psychologists like Dr. Jeff Greenberg, which suggests that humans are motivated to transcend their fear of death by finding meaning or purpose. For Treadwell, this purpose was the bears. He seemed to believe that by immersing himself in the world of the grizzlies, he could transcend human limitations. The bears, in his mind, weren't just wild animals. They were companions, protectors, and perhaps reflections of something he longed for within himself. And yet, for all his love and passion, Treadwell's relationship with the bears was built on a fundamental misinterpretation of nature. He called them his friends, named them like pets, and spoke to them as if they shared a mutual understanding. But to the bears, Treadwell was just another creature in their environment, one that didn't always follow the rules. He would often get dangerously close, breaking every guideline set by the National Park Service for bear safety. This wasn't just about his safety, but about the bears' well-being as well. By humanizing these wild animals, Treadwell was teaching them a dangerous lesson, that humans weren't a threat. In his mind, he was helping them, but in reality, he was putting them, and himself, in danger. Werner Herzog's documentary Grizzly Man explores this tension between Treadwell's idealism and the brutal reality of the wilderness. In many ways, Herzog's film paints Treadwell as a tragic figure, a man blinded by his love for the wild, unable to see the indifference of nature that would ultimately take his life. In one of the most haunting moments of the documentary, Herzog reflects on the eyes of the bears that Treadwell loved so dearly. What Treadwell saw as understanding, Herzog saw as something far more primal. The cold, detached stare of a creature indifferent to the dreams, passions, or even the lives of humans. There's no denying that Treadwell did have an impact. During his time in Katmai, incidents of bear poaching dropped to zero. He raised awareness about grizzlies, filming hundreds of hours of footage that gave the world an intimate look at these powerful creatures. But for many, his methods were reckless. He violated park regulations, refused to carry bear spray, and lived without the safety measures required for such close proximity to predators. To the National Park Service, he was a liability, someone who romanticized nature to the point of recklessness. In the fall of 2003, Treadwell's story came to its tragic conclusion. He had stayed in Katmai later than usual that year, lingering as his regular bears went into hibernation, replaced by more aggressive, hungry newcomers. It was during this time that a bear attacked and killed both Treadwell and his girlfriend, Amie Huguenard. The bear that took their lives was later shot and killed by park rangers. A bitter irony, considering Treadwell's life's work was dedicated to protecting them. But this wasn't just the story of a man who met a tragic end. Timothy Treadwell's life and death forces us to confront some uncomfortable questions about the relationship between humans and nature. Was Treadwell a martyr for wildlife conservation? Or was he simply a man consumed by his own delusions? In Herzog's film, the filmmaker seems to lean toward the latter, suggesting that Treadwell's downfall was his inability to see the bears for what they truly were: wild, dangerous animals, not the companions he imagined them to be. In the years since his death, Treadwell's legacy has remained a subject of debate. Some view him as a hero, someone who gave his life for what he believed in. Others see his story as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of romanticizing nature. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. Treadwell's footage has provided invaluable insights into bear behavior, but his death underscores the limits of human understanding when it comes to the natural world. In the end, Timothy Treadwell's story is one of passion, obsession, and tragedy. He lived and died by his own philosophy, that the wilderness was a place of purity, free from the flaws and corruption of human society. But as much as we may want to find meaning in his death, it's hard to escape the cold truth that nature is indifferent to our ideals. The bears. Treadwell loved so dearly didn't share his vision of harmony. They simply acted according to their instincts. And perhaps that's the final lesson of Timothy Treadwell's life, that nature, for all its beauty and majesty, is not something that can be tamed or understood through human emotions. It exists on its own terms, and those who enter its domain must respect its rules. Treadwell's story, though tragic, continues to captivate us because it forces us to confront our own relationship with the wild, a relationship that is both awe-inspiring and ultimately humbling. As we come to the end of Timothy Treadwell's story, we're left with a mix of admiration and sadness. His love for the wilderness, for the grizzlies, was undeniable. He walked a path that most of us will never dare to follow, a path where passion and danger blurred into one. And while his story ended in tragedy, it continues to remind us of the delicate balance between man and nature. Timothy believed in something greater than himself, and perhaps that's what draws us to his legacy. The idea that even in the vast, uncaring wild, one person's dream can still echo through time. Treadwell's life was one of contradictions, but at its core, it was about connection to the land, to the animals, and to a vision of a world where man and beast might coexist in harmony. So, as we leave the wilds of Alaska and step back into our own lives, let's carry that reminder with us, that nature is not just something to be admired from a distance, but something to be respected and understood on its own terms. Timothy may be gone, but his story, his passion, and his lessons live on. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the life of the Grizzly Man. I'm Hudson Grey, and until next time, remember, some stories are worth telling because they remind us of who we are and who we strive to be.